Good evening, and welcome to the Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 regular school board meeting. The time is now 6 p.m. The school board would like to take this moment to respectfully acknowledge that we are residing on the traditional land of the Dene people. Our mission is to provide an excellent, equitable education in a safe, supportive environment so all students will succeed and contribute to a diverse and changing society. Miss Charlie, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the roll?
Miss Charlie,
Here.
Mr. Shannon,
Here.
Colonel Cole,
Here.
Colonel Foster,
Here.
Mr. Burgess,
Here.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Here.
Mr. Doran,
Here.
Miss Julian,
Here.
Miss Maple,
Here.
Mrs. Hardy,
Here.
Mrs. Burnett.
Here.
Thank you. The board has a quorum.
Thank you, Mrs. Richardson. Up next is our Excellent Educator Award of the Month. Afrika Beatty, head teacher for the SMART program, will be recognized as the Excellent Educator of the Month for April 2025. Lori Beam, Executive Director of Alternative Schools and Programs, will make the presentation. And I apologize, that was Beatty.
Good evening. I am very happy to be here tonight to celebrate somebody who is truly exceptional, Ms. Afrika Beatty. I'm going to read this so I don't, because I always just do my own little spiel, so I'm going to read it, so pardon me. Afrika is a fierce and unwavering advocate for our students. She consistently goes the extra mile to ensure their voices are heard, their needs are met, and that they have every opportunity to succeed, whether it's navigating challenges, securing necessary resources, or simply ensuring a student feels seen and valued. Afrika champions their well-being and academic growth with remarkable dedication. Afrika, your dedication to our students and our community shines brightly. This recognition is so well-deserved, and I was so happy to put your name in for it, especially for your incredible work implementing our first successful district-wide credit recovery Saturday school that we had third quarter. That initiative made a huge difference for so many of our students. But your commitment doesn't stop there. You tirelessly run our summer school program, ensuring continued learning opportunities, and you lead our SMART program with fairness and effectiveness, always keeping the best interest of our students at the forefront. Your passion for education, your strong advocacy for our students, and your willingness to go above and beyond are truly inspiring. Congratulations on Educator of the Month. I'm gonna start crying. Thank you for all that you do, and I love you. I tell her all the time, we couldn't do this without her. She is somebody who is there for our students, and our at-risk students are those who need it most, and she's on top of it. Thank you, Afrika. Thank you. This is yours. Oh. Let me shake your hand, and I'll give that to you. I'll carry that for you. How's that?
Up next is our adoption of the agenda with consent items. Consent agenda items marked with an asterisk are considered routine items not requiring public discussion by the school board. Unless removed from the consent agenda, asterisk items will be automatically approved when the agenda is adopted. Questions concerning these items should be directed to the administration before the meeting. If the superintendent or a member of the public wishes to have an item removed from the consent agenda, the request must be made to a board member anytime prior to the start of the meeting. The board member has the discretion to accept or deny the request. Only a board member may remove an item from the consent agenda. If an item is removed from the consent agenda, it shall be considered separately as the last item of new business. Asterisk items will then be adopted by one single motion. May I have a motion to approve the agenda with consent items?
Move to adopt the agenda with consent items.
Second.
Ms. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Colonel Foster,
Yes.
Colonel Cole,
Yes.
Miss Charlie,
Yes.
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Miss Maple,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Miss Julian,
Yes.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Dorn,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you, motion carried.
Thank you. Up next is our public comments on reports and non-agenda items, including general comments, inputs, ideas, and suggestions. During this section of the agenda, the school board welcomes public comments on non-agenda topics. This is an opportunity for community members to be heard. The board will note the topic so no official actions will be taken. Topics may be referred to the administration for further research and future potential action. Board members will not respond to comments or questions made by the public. Concerned citizens should first discuss matters with the superintendent or designee. After the superintendent or designee has heard the concerns, they may be brought to the board. Individual students and district personnel may not be discussed in public testimony. Please contact the district office to route concerns about individual students or district personnel through the appropriate channels. Members of the public will be given the opportunity to speak on agenda items at the time the item is introduced for action and/or discussion. Once the agenda is published, testifiers should email or call the school board office by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting to sign up for public testimony. Students who have signed up in advance or are in the room and wishing to testify will be called upon first, followed by members of the public who have signed up in advance in the order in which they have signed up. If time remains, anyone else in person will be invited to testify until the 1-hour time limit has been reached. A sign-up sheet is available in the boardroom before the start of each meeting. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each and should provide their first name, spell their last, and state their area of residence. You will also notice our new time clocks here in our boardroom. The light will turn green when your time starts. When you have reached 30 seconds left in your testimony, the light will turn yellow. At the end of your 3 minutes, a buzzer will sound. Are there any students present in the boardroom who wish to provide comment at this time? Seeing none, we will move on to the first person on our list, and that will be Mr. Ellis Ott. Good evening, Mr. Ott. If you could state your name, spell your last. You know the drill.
Ellis Ott, OTT. To the school board and Fairbanks community, April is the month of the military child, and it's a time to recognize and support our military-dependent students, those with guardians in the uniformed services, or employed on federal property, or who live on federal property. In our borough, over 33% of the land is tax-exempt federal property, which limits local tax revenue for schools. The Federal Impact Aid Program helps make up for that loss, ensuring our students receive equitable funding. I was recently appointed Alaska's state chair for the National Association of Federally Impact Schools, known as NAFIS, which represents 1,100 school districts serving over 8 million students nationwide. At the March NAFIS conference in D.C., I met with Kevin Swanson, Deputy Chief of Staff for Representative Nicholas Begich, to advocate for continued impact aid funding. The potential loss of these funds could nearly double our district's projected deficit for 25-26. Alaska is uniquely impacted as it's the only state that applies these funds to an education funding equalization program. I stated that regardless of the future of the U.S. Department of Education, impact aid is a federal obligation to our schools and must remain intact. Thanks to detailed research and collaboration with district and borough staff, we've made great progress in accurately identifying military-dependent students to ensure we receive the correct level of funding. Notably, we've identified key reporting categories that significantly increase aid, including students who both live on and have a civilian guardian working on federal property. We've also confirmed that communities like Birchwood Homes and Secluded Acres qualify as part of Fort Wainwright. These efforts, supported by Colonel Cole and Fort Wainwright staff, school liaison officers Janet Ferris and Ernest Kincaid, and military student support coordinator Georgia Sangren, are expected to increase our identified count by nearly 1,000 students for this school year. Staff members, including Jennifer Rinlensbacher, Karen Bush, Sarah Gillum, Rebecca Herby, and Superintendent Meinert have supported this work. Once our data is finalized, I'll update the 24-25 data on the enrollment dashboard, and will also recommend an amendment to the impact aid report to reflect this growth, helping to maximize impact aid funding for the 25-26 school year. We've launched a brief survey through Parent Square to confirm civilian employment on federal property as of October 25th, 2024. It's open until April 29th, 2025, and takes less than 5 minutes to complete. A list of known federal properties is included, but families can add other employers and locations if needed. We welcome community input to help ensure accuracy. I encourage families to complete the survey and appreciate their participation. Federal impact aid is vital to our district's funding. Thank you for your continued support.
Thank you for your testimony. Up next, we have Gail McBride. Good evening, Ms. McBride. If you can state your name, spell your last, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Gail McBride, MCBRIDE. Our efforts to reclaim our children from some objectionable policies are being obstructed. Included in these policies are library policies. As you know, across the country, there are efforts to clean pornography from our school libraries. In recent weeks, the district has taken actions to censor citizens from viewing school library content online. A recent change in the district's website excludes citizens from access to view school library content. This deliberate action to prevent transparency is damaging to the district's reputation in a time when our state is demanding more funding for schools. The lack of transparency and policy change to narrow the window for challenging books is actively protecting pornographic material in our school libraries. This is a very, very bad look for the district, especially when confidence is at a low point. We are asking for a policy change to exclude pornographic material from our schools. Language from the Tennessee legislature for school library books is a model to follow. Quote, material that, in whole or in part, contains nudity or descriptions or depictions of sexual excitement, sexual conduct, excess violence, or sadomasochistic abuse must not be maintained in a school library's collection. Quotes from Utah Governor Gary Herbert, pornography is a public health crisis. Whereas efforts to prevent pornography exposure and addiction, to educate individuals and families concerning its harms, and to develop recovery programs must be addressed systematically in ways that hold broader influences accountable. Whereas pornography is contributing to the hypersexualization of teens and even prepubescent children in our society. And I'd like to invite everyone, not only the board, to the Noel Ween Library Conference Room at 2 p.m. this Saturday. We'll be showing a video. It's a discussion by best-selling author Abigail Schreier, author of Bad Therapy, Why Kids Aren't Growing Up. It will discuss social emotional learning in the classroom and how to trust your parental instincts.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. McBride. That brings us to the end of our sign-up list. Is there anybody else out there who wishes to come testify? Please come forward. Good evening. If you could state your name, spell your last, you will have 3 minutes.
Yeah. Richard Ide, North Pole, EIDE. I don't know how y'all look so fresh at the end of a long day. I'm always just wasted. Good job. Okay, so latest headlines, one of them anyway, is the federal government freezes 2.26 billion funding to Harvard after it refuses to comply to removing DEI. Likewise, a month ago in Columbia, the feds, Columbia University, they lost $400 million. I'd like to have a piece of that for our district, but anyway, they came back and said, well, we're proud to be partisan, political, and left-wing. So they refused to protect Jewish students and maintain their DEI policies. I mention this because February, let's see the date here, I have a newspaper, February 28th. The News Miner, they got word that the district got a letter from the federal government, and they only gave you 2 weeks to make changes to take DEI policies out and so on, and that wasn't enough time to comply. But I wish I could get feedback honestly from y'all, because I would like to know, I would like to believe that you have done something so you could say, look, federal government, we have taken DEI language out off our site, off our paperwork. We have taken P-flag colors out of the classrooms. Teachers aren't allowed to talk about it unless it's by the counselor or something. And I would like to believe that some steps have been taken. I do know that in the newspaper it said, one of you, I don't know if I can single anybody out, but we feel strongly about providing equitable options for and access for all our students. Amen. Let's do that. And I don't mean just, give special privilege to certain people, but, no special bathrooms and no pronouns. Just let's get on with good, solid education. Let's make it attractive to all parents, even conservative parents. Nothing wrong with that. And let's get down to brass tacks and get to education, not social experimenting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony, Mr. Ide.
Yeah.
That brings us to the end. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify? Public testimony is now closed. That will bring us to our advisory member reports and comments. We will start down here with Mr. Shannon.
Yeah, so basically our last regional student council meeting will be tomorrow. That's when they'll find a replacement for me. They'll replace, there'll be an election to replace me, replace all the student representatives on each of the committees, as well as several other elections for the regional student council as a whole. It's actually next week. Next weekend, there'll be the conference for the Alaska Association of Student Governments, so that this will be the spring conference. Really excited to see how that goes, see what people bring to the table there. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot. Once we have our meeting tomorrow, I'll be sure to gather all that intel and let you guys know at our next meeting. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Shannon. And it's sad to know that you're getting ready to find your replacement, and that makes us sad. Any questions or comments from the board for Mr. Shannon? Seeing none. Ms. Charlie, any report from you today?
I just want to thank the North Pole High School. Last Thursday, they hosted their poetry grand slam. I was invited to be a judge there, and the event was really put together. It was really amazing. The students had some really amazing poems. It was really difficult to be a judge, but I just want to thank all the English teachers out there at North Pole High and all the students who submitted their poems to the event. And also I just want to congratulate Izzy for being the North Pole overall Grand Slam winner this year. I forgot her last name, but she had a really beautiful poem. So just a quick shout out to North Pole High School.
Thank you, Ms. Charlie. And we will go down here. Colonel Foster.
Nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Foster. Colonel Cole.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Dr. Ellisott for doing that research into federal impact aid and actually understanding all the different categories and who is actually eligible for it, and then coming up with a way to try and confirm, suspicions and thoughts for connected students. And I also look forward with working with the school district for the next couple of months on the rezoning of the elementary schools and understanding for us, for our traffic management, traffic control on Fort Wainwright, now that we'll have different routes for buses and potentially buses going to a school that may not have had buses going to. So, and other than that, that's all I have for the school board tonight. So thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Cole. Any questions for Colonel Cole? Seeing none, that will bring us into our board committee reports. Do we have any board members who have committee reports to share tonight? Seeing none? Okay. That will bring us to the president's report. Let me pull that up. Okay, so first, I want to apologize to the board and the public for missing our last meeting. I've been very quiet about it, but my family has been navigating a significant health situation with our daughter. I appreciate the grace and understanding that you have shown, and I apologize. It's been hard. I am very grateful for the support of our administration and the board, and I am looking forward to better days ahead. With that, looking forward, and I'm super excited for graduation season. I'm hoping springtime is in the air. Always such a special time to celebrate our students and all of their hard work. Like many of you, I'm also hopeful that fifth winter won't show up this year and that we are finally full steam ahead towards blue skies and no more snow for our graduating seniors. Though now that I've said that, I apologize, I probably jinxed it. I washed my car. That was what happened last time, so I'm sorry for that. Over the past several weeks, we have been seeing an increasing number of emails and messages from the community regarding the district's add-back list. In particular, the concerns surrounding the 2.5 FTE loss at Barnett and the impact of increased pupil-to-teacher ratios at Hutchinson High School and on our career and technical education teachers. Those ones have really stood out. I want our community to know that this board is listening. We take your concerns seriously and are committed to doing what we can with the resources that we have. That said, it's important to remember that in order for us to lower our pupil-to-teacher ratio or our class sizes and start gaining back the support and programs we've lost over time, we need consistent, adequate funding, not just from the borough, but from the state as well. I'd like to sincerely thank the Borough Assembly for passing their minimum funding resolution committing $60 million to our district. This is a vital baseline and we're grateful for their continued support. At the state level, House Bill 69, which includes a $1,000 increase to the base student allocation, has now been sent to the governor's desk. Unfortunately, his comments don't give us much confidence that he's planning to sign it. So I do encourage everyone, families, educators, and community members alike, to keep the pressure on. Reach out to our legislators and let them know how crucial it is that they continue to fight for sustainable education funding, even if this bill doesn't go the way we hope. I am grateful that it has been brought to the governor's desk now, as that means we still have time. This past weekend, the board took time to work on our self-evaluation with the Alaska Association of School Boards. It was 2 days of hard work and meaningful conversation, and I am grateful to each board member for being a part of it. It left me feeling hopeful that about the work we're doing together, and I hope that the rest of this board feels the same. It was a good weekend of work, and we are thankful to AASB. That wraps up my president's report, and if there are no questions or comments from the board, I will pass things over to Superintendent Dr. Miner for his report.
All right. Thank you, President Burnett. I'd also like to start out the evening by saying thank you to Mayor Hopkins and our Borough Assembly members, David Guttenberg, Brett Roderman, Mindy O'Neill, Liz Reeves-Ramos, Nick Laginas, Kristen Kelly, and Scott Crass for your support of the $60 million in minimum funding resolution. At a time where there's so much uncertainty regarding revenue options for the school district, I'm very thankful that our local Borough Assembly has stepped up and prioritized education funding here locally. District administration and the school board will be presenting highlights of our recommended budget and discussing district needs during a Borough Assembly Finance Committee this Thursday. I'd like to extend a heartfelt thank you to Shannon Fortune from State Farm, who's in the room with us this evening, for his outstanding and ongoing support of Ryan Middle School and schools throughout the borough. His generosity ranges from donating staff resources like gift cards and microwaves to recognizing students for their academic growth and supporting extracurricular programs like wrestling at Ryan. Shannon's presence at school events and his genuine engagement with students, staff, and families exemplify the kind of community partnerships that enriches our schools. And we're truly grateful for his dedication and support to our public schools in Fairbanks. And I know he's been at this for a really long time. My wife used to teach with Miss Fortune at Ladd Elementary way back in the day, and he was showering those students and staff with love there too. And so thank you for your support of our Fairbanks schools. Congratulations to North Pole High School students Jack Perkins and Chris Fisher on their first and second place wins in the Automotive Service Technology category at the Skills USA Alaska State Leadership and Skills Conference held in March this year. They both won the first and second place award in a really competitive environment, and we're very proud of those students. Both students won a variety of gift cards and tools from local businesses and industry partners and received scholarships from the University of Alaska Anchorage and the Universal Technical Institute. So some great recognition there. I'd also like to talk a little bit about Hutch. I know President Burnett mentioned it in her discussion tonight, as we have received some emails from staff and local community members concerned about the loss of potential options at Hutch. And I think this situation exemplifies the impact of increased pupil-to-teacher ratios at the secondary level. We often see this, and we've seen it over the years as PTR rises in the secondary levels. Unfortunately, oftentimes our elective courses, which are sometimes the most popular courses with our students, start to shrink in the numbers that we can provide because we are required to provide core academic classes. And as our staffing reduces, the amount of classes we can offer reduces. And so, as President Burnett mentioned, the school board is doing the very best they can with the limited resources that we have. And I would encourage those that have individual stories about impacts to their families and students to connect with the governor, to connect with the legislators, and tell them your personal stories on what inadequate funding is leading to for you and your students' education. We can continue from the dais and from our spots to talk about all of the cuts in programs and the increase in class sizes, but the most impactful stories really come from our families. And so if you want to see better educational opportunities for your students in the future, we really need you to step up and continue to talk to the governor and our legislators about what proper educational funding looks like and what it can do for your students. Our district recently received a grant from the Alaska Department of Education and Early Development to provide hunter education for our Fairbanks students here locally. This is a free course for ages 10 and up, and students will learn about gun safety, wildlife conservation, and being respectful to nature, landowners, and other hunters. They'll spend 6 to 8 hours learning online and then 4 to 5 hours practicing in person. If you'd like to sign up for this course, you get a free first aid kit and a lock for storing a firearm safely. To join the Fairbanks Hunter Education class, email Brianna Gray at k12northstar.org, and she'll assist with registration. We'll also have information going out in the North Star News and on Facebook for those that are interested. As most of you know, April is the month of the military child. Many of our schools have had recognition events with our district wearing purple last Friday and again today in some of our schools, and so that's why I'm supporting purple. The month of the military child began in 1986, established by Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberg. It recognizes the unique sacrifices and challenges faced by children in military families due to frequent moves and deployments. I had the opportunity to speak at Arctic Lights Purple Up event today, and We did a kind of a call and response game where I asked different questions, and if they identified with that, they'd say, "That's me," and they would stand up. And one of the questions was if you've lived in a different country, and almost the entire gym stood up. And so it's just impressive to see the resilience of our students that transfer in and out of Fairbanks and our communities, and what kind of amazing experiences they bring to our schools. And so just loved and felt very honored to have the opportunity to celebrate with those students today, and feel very honored to lead a school district where 25% of our students and families are military connected. There will be a Day in the Life event at Pioneer Park on April 26th from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. To continue to celebrate our military connected community. I've taken my young children to that event the last couple years, and they always have a great time. Last year, they were able to climb into armored vehicles and try on different uniforms and those types of things. So it's a very interactive event and great for the entire family. So I encourage you to go check that out. Continuing on the theme of military-friendly community and our individuals within our communities stepping up, over 15 of our seniors have committed to serving in the armed forces in the future, including our very own Inka Shannon on our board, who will be attending the very prestigious Air Force Academy. And just wanted to recognize Inka and the students that have stepped up and taken on that great sacrifice for our country. So a little round of applause for Inka. Tonight, prior to the board meeting, Colonel Townsend and I were able to sign a continued MOU to continue a pre-apprenticeship program on Eielson Air Force Base. This is a wonderful opportunity for our Fairbanks and North Pole students. It provides students hands-on experiences at Eielson. There's over 80 career opportunities that they can explore in their junior and senior year, and it's amazing that Eielson Air Force Base has opened up that opportunity for our students to get hands-on experience while in high school. So a huge thank you to Colonel Townsend and the United States Air Force 354th Fighter Wing for allowing us to continue to offer those opportunities for our students. Lastly, enrollment is open for next school year. So if you have a kindergarten student or an incoming kindergarten student that is interested in enrolling in one of our neighborhood schools or charter schools, one of the alternative options or BEST, enrollment is open online. You can go to our website. There's a huge slide on the front page that says enroll now, and lots of different resources to help you through registering for the school of your choice. If you run into roadblocks, please reach out to the individual school that you would like to register at. We're more than happy to help walk you through that enrollment and registration process. And if you're a student that isn't in kindergarten, maybe you explored other options or you're moving to town, registration is also open for you. And so we look forward to providing an awesome academic experience for your child, and that'll start next fall with that enrollment. And that concludes my report for this evening, and happy to answer any questions anybody may have from the board.
Mr. Dorn.
Thank you, Dr. Minert, for that report. One question and one observation. In terms of Dr. Ott's testimony tonight on impact aid, I'm assuming there's communication that is going out, and I think that was referenced in his comments, that there's communication going out to parents. Could you maybe restate how parents can help the district identify and maybe say benefit the process of your trying to identify everyone who is eligible so it can benefit not only military connected students, but it benefits our entire district?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for the question. So we sent out a very short survey to families yesterday via Parent Square. If you didn't see it, you can see it on the app. We'll also do some additional pushes here in the future. But it asks some very simple questions about your employment and if you think you are employed with an employer that potentially resides on federal lands. By answering this information, it can help the district out to secure additional impact aid funding for the district. Up to almost $1 million is what I'm told by Mr. Ott. And so there's some significant funding potentially involved if we can identify other students or families that do have employment on federal lands that we can take advantage of in the application that we go through to identify that. And so look for that either in your email or the Parent Square app.
And can they go to our website if they say, okay, I'm not sure I received this, but can they go to the website? And
Currently they cannot, but we're working on getting that up on the website. So that'll be one of those slides here in the future.
And
Yep.
thanks very much to you and Dr. Ott and Colonel Cole for all the work, and the others who have really been working on this to get a better handle on impact aid. And then just an observation or suggestion, I don't know, it may not be in time for this year, but at one point for several years I was reminded when you talked about the North Pole students who did so well in their CTE work. We had actually signings with various apprenticeship programs of the unions, and I know it filled this room, and very similar to what often happens for students signing for athletic teams, et cetera, for college. But if that kind of went by the wayside with COVID and stuff, and I'd just like to put it in the hopper that it'd be well worth looking at again, and perhaps in the future we could recognize those. Similarly, I think it really highlights the benefits of our CTE and how well our students do in moving into new opportunities with our local unions.
Yeah, great suggestion. We've actually been hosting those the last couple years, both at Hutchinson High School and at North Pole High. They've hosted them there on site and have made a great evening of it, and have really celebrated those students that have decided to go into the trades.
Any other questions from the board? Ms. Julian.
Thank you so much. Dr. Meinert, I wanted to ask a little bit. I've had some questions coming forward from the community about the loss of instruction time up to 3 instructional days at the schools that are going to be closing this year, Pearl Creek, Two Rivers, and Midnight Sun, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of those. But can you just walk through a little bit about that process for those families that are going to be impacted? And also, you know, a lot of people are asking, was there an option for teachers to extend? What's the process for moving? Help to understand that. And then how does this also align with state law that's, you know, potentially we're offering less than 170 days of instructional time for those impacted students? So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're following a similar process that we've followed throughout our school consolidation processes. We've gone through, this is our third round. And so historically, we've closed school up to a week prior to the official closing date. And we've had staff members continue to work their contract that they're contracted for, but the student contact day has ended a week before. In this instance, it's going to end on that Friday. We had, if the board remembers and the community remembers, we had 3 inclement weather days that went into, I believe, the 19th, 20th, and the 21st. And those are the days that we've set aside to have staff members help pack up consolidated buildings. As schools are closed, teachers not only have their classroom to pack up, but we have lots of curricular material, resources, sporting goods, technology that needs to pack up and follow students to other schools that they'll be attending next fall. And it's really helpful to have our experts, our staff members, our teachers and educators do that work. They know what's important for students and the materials that will need to go with them versus what could potentially stay there and we could take a look at moving later. And so staff members and educators do have some additional work days at the beginning of next year, but those will be set aside for those staff members settling into their new building and getting their new classrooms ready.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none at this time, thank you, Dr. Minor. Moving on, we will go into our new business. We have our proposed curriculum, grades K through 12, music, physical education, and health curriculum. The administration provided a report to the school board on the curriculum materials proposed for grades K through 12, music, physical education, and health at the April 1st meeting. The curriculum is now before the board for adoption. The administration recommends the adoption of the curriculum as submitted. May I get a motion?
Move to adopt the grades K-12 music, physical education, and health curriculum as submitted.
Second.
We will now open it up for public testimony on the K-12 music, physical education, and health curriculum, and we do have one person signed up, Miss Adia Cotter. Good evening, Miss Cotter. If you could state your name, spell your last, you will have 3 minutes.
Adia Cotter, Cotter. I filled out my impact aid form today, and I will make sure everyone in our building who has a student does the same. I am in full support of adopting the health curriculum and continuing sex education in our public schools. If any of you are on the fence, I'd like to point out a few things that show me that this is the right decision. How often do we say to someone, "How are you?" And how often is the answer, "Fine," even when it's not? Health can be a difficult topic to discuss. How many people are uncomfortable talking about the topic of sex education? These are things that sometimes people have a hard time talking about and a hard time accepting that they need to think about these things to be full, productive members of society and can take care of themselves. There's often stigma around these topics and an underlying current of guilt or embarrassment that prevents us from being our best selves and engaging in healthy behaviors. Communication, practical information, strong relationships, and skill development are key to these healthy behaviors and our individual wellness. This curriculum shows that it supports not only our students' education, but also their lifelong well-being. As parents, we spend a lot of time making decisions about our kids' health and safety, and when they're no longer under our care, they are responsible for making those decisions on their own. I fully support our public schools giving our kids functional and accurate information so they can develop healthy behaviors as adults and make good decisions. I see this curriculum supporting our jobs as parents and giving our kids this good information. I know there can be fear in trusting someone else to teach our kids these topics, and I have no doubt that our teachers and schools will ensure that the lessons are appropriate, considerate of different viewpoints, and give space for kids to feel comfortable discussing these things. These are all important factors in the learning process, learning any subject. I appreciate the district's policy to allow parents to opt their child out if they don't feel comfortable. That is an option. Overall, the curriculum performance indicators are age appropriate and emphasize not just physical health, but mental and emotional as well. There's an emphasis on teaching relationship building and advocacy, which I think is very important. It's important to a student's ability to develop self-awareness of their health and ultimately make decisions about their behavior. I'm happy to see the units covering nutrition, safety, and the topic of sleep. These are all things as a parent I seem to remind my own kids of a lot. Who knew that teenagers were experts on sleep? So seeing them at school is a great thing because it's only reinforcing what we as parents are advocating. I hope you see the value of this curriculum, and I look forward to seeing it this school year.
Thank you for your testimony, Ms. Cotter. Is there anybody else who wishes to testify on this topic? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. Does the board have any questions for administration or further discussion? Mrs. Julian,
Are we opening it up for discussion now?
discussion or questions?
Yeah, I'm going to speak in support of this motion on the table. I am strongly in favor of the PE music and health curriculum, and thank you for the public testimony tonight regarding that. The reason that I am in full support of this is the age appropriateness that has been identified and adjusted in the health curriculum. It's scientific based and it's absolutely needed. I fully believe that it's a critical part of public education, and I'm in support of this.
Thank you, Mrs. Dooley. And anything, Mr. Burgess?
Thank you. I just wanted to take a moment to remind folks of the process. I appreciated Ms. Dooleyan's question at the last meeting, and I thought it was worth repeating that the way that curriculum is developed begins with the teachers, the experts. We are on a cycle that comes up, and so whenever a particular subject comes up for a curriculum review, teachers start working on it. They propose changes, updates, and then it goes through this process where it comes to the administration, and the administration puts it out for public comment and brings it to the curriculum committee. The curriculum committee reviews the curriculum and the public comments, suggests changes, and we can go through several drafts. I think this year the health curriculum went through a couple drafts. I think music had a couple drafts as well, and PE. And I think it was a very robust process. At the end of the process, the curriculum committee votes twice, once to recommend the approval of the curriculum, and then again on a memo that they can that they have the option to amend and modify, which then comes before the board, and that's their official recommendation. So I wanted to review that process. I also wanted to highlight that health curriculum, people often focus on the most controversial part of it, but it really is encompassing a lot more. And this year we had, I've mentioned this before, but we had our student rep on the curriculum committee put forward an amendment to include training on the use of naloxone to help save lives when in the event of an overdose. And so that's one example of something else that's in there. And there's a lot more too. The committee had a great discussion about the use of electronic devices as well, and starting teaching that earlier, and the health effects that are sometimes associated with overuse of those devices. So a lot in there, and really good work that the curriculum committee did on this and the other curricula that we are about to discuss. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Ms. Carol Hubbard?
Thank you. I want to also speak in support of the music, physical education, and the health curriculum. I know that a lot of these have been worked on, some since 2021. So it's been a long time in the making. And I just want to extend appreciation to the teachers, the administration, and the community members who worked on the curriculum. We can see that it's student-centered. It's supportive of student learning. It's aligned with the standards, and it reflects the priorities of the strategic plan, which is a home run on all fronts. So thank you for all your hard work, and I will be supporting this.
Mr. Dorn?
Thank you. Through the chair, I have a question for the administration. And Mr. Burgess's comments brought it to mind when we talk about training for naloxone. Could you remind me if in the health curriculum there is a piece where we also train students on the defibrillators that are in each of our schools in the upper grades, at least knowing that they're there, and then how they might use them if appropriately. But I know there's a term for them, and I just can't remember what that technical term is.
I'd like to ask Mr. Beam or
Yeah, no, we don't have that in the health as far as that. Yeah, we don't train students to do that. Not in health. Yeah, yeah.
CNA.
Yes, there's a different class in our health science pathway for CTE called First Aid CPR, where students are trained in that.
Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much. I'm glad it's, and I would expect that it'd be primarily at the upper grade levels, but thank you. I'm glad we're we're including that.
Anything further from the board? I'll just throw myself in real quick to say that I'm also in support of this and the work that has been done. You know, a few years ago, we had a health discussion, and you don't know what you don't know till you know, is what I like to say sometimes. And I know that sometimes doesn't make sense. I see Mr. Burgess's eyes going wonky over there, but it's true. You don't know what you don't know till you know. And I find that to be my whole 3 years on this board. And so I just wanted to speak in favor of this. And so with that, Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Colonel Foster,
Yes.
Colonel Cole,
Yes.
Miss Charlie,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
Yes.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Miss Maple,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Miss Julian,
Yes.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you. That brings us to our next curriculum up on the docket. That is grades 6 through 12 CTE education and CTE agricultural curriculum. The administration provided a report to the school board on the curriculum materials proposed for grades 6 through 12 CTE education and the CTE agricultural curriculum at the April 1st meeting. The curriculum is now before the board for adoption. The administration recommends the adoption of the curriculum as submitted. May I get a motion?
Move to adopt the CTE education and CTE agricultural curriculum for grades 6 through 12 as submitted.
Second.
We will now open it up for public testimony on the proposed CTE education and CTE agricultural curriculum. Is there anyone who wishes to publicly testify? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. Does the board have any questions for administration or further discussion? We do have Miss Wade on Zoom if anyone needs anything from her as well. Mr. Doran.
Two observations in terms of both of these courses. It happened last week. I was at Lathrop, and when the counselor happened to bounce out of her office and was so excited to share with the principal that she had just gotten the word that the CTE agriculture course can also count for a science credit. And I know it gets a little different routing, but it can be done. And she had just had a student who really is interested in the agricultural field and was hoping to take the course, but he's also has to finish his graduation credits, and he would have been in a bind and would not have, if he had to do the science separately, he would not have been able to do this. And so kudos to the district for looking at the way that can be cross-referenced, cross-counted, and really opens the doors for students. So it was kind of one of those immediate things that we had the report last week. It's on our agenda for approval tonight, but how it does impact students and how we can meet their needs. And then coincidentally, on Saturday, I was at a legislative town hall in town, and was talking to someone who was there afterwards who was talking about education. Gee, it would really be nice to have a course where students could get credit for learning to be a teacher and this education, CTA education, and I was able to say, guess what? That we just had the report, it's up for adoption, and so I just mentioned those as how critical these CTE classes are, and that we look for ways, especially in times when budgets do impact our electives, when the number of required courses for graduation kind of grows. There's legislation to add another one, these types, to really understand those impacts when it impinges on the courses that students actually will make a difference for their life going forward.
Thank you. Yeah, I just as Mr. Doran was talking, it reminded me that you know, I've just been as the chair of the curriculum committee this past couple of years. It's been very much inspiring, and part of what I mean by that is that we see innovation out of the teaching and learning department all the time, including the development of these kinds of courses and that thoughtfulness behind, well, should this count for a certain kind of credit? Can we help kids out to get take a course what they need, that they are very interested in, but also fulfill those needed credit requirements. And I wanted to say too that you know, again, we had committee members who felt the same way. They felt inspired, and they felt that they had more faith in the district following their involvement with this committee. So anybody who's interested in getting involved with the committee, you know, sign up. It's a great way to just see the incredible things that are happening in our district all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Miss Carol Hubbard, and then Mrs. Julian.
Thank you. I just want to speak in support of this curriculum. I'm really excited about the new agricultural segment here. I think it's really exciting that it was a collaborative effort between UAF and even the Tanana Chiefs, the Fairbanks Native Association, teachers, administrators, students, parents, the public, everybody got involved in this, and I'm really excited about that. And agriculture seems to be really a hot topic right now. So I think this is a really great way for us to sort of forge ahead and get in front of some of the current trends and movements. So I'm excited about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Carol Hubbard. Mrs. Julian.
Thank you, and if I may, through the chair, to the administration, one of the as we were talking about this, I'm going to first I'll speak to in favor of this motion. I appreciate the amount of community partnerships that are built into the agriculture curriculum in particular. And I brought this up at the last work session and when we went through this, but I just want to bring it up once again. Our Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation is currently going through a process to become the Alaska Regional Development Organization in the interior, which focused on agriculture. So I think that there is a tremendous amount of potential focus from the entire state that's going to be on interior about agriculture, and this is a great opportunity for us to share with the community that we are innovating, that we are responding to a community need, and that we're building a career pathway into a thriving and growing career field that the entire state of Alaska is focused on for interior. And I hope that we can, so I guess my question is, I hope that we can continue to strengthen those partnerships with the Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation, hopefully the Alaska Regional Development Organization and ADAR in interior Alaska. And this also would respond to the city of Alaska, the city of Fairbanks putting forth a motion that supports the Economic Development Corporation becoming that ADOR in agriculture. So.
Absolutely. You have our commitment, and Miss Andrea Wade is masterful at cultivating those partnerships with industry partners, and so really thankful to have her on our staff for continuing to build those partnerships, and we look forward to building that out in the future for our students.
Anything further from the board at this time? Seeing nothing, Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Ms. Charlie?
Yes.
Mr. Shannon?
Yes.
Colonel Foster?
Yes.
Colonel Cole?
Yes.
Carol Hubbard?
Yes.
Mr. Doran?
Yes.
Mrs. Hardy?
Yes.
Miss Maple?
Yes.
Mr. Burgess?
Yes.
Miss Julian?
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
That moves us on to our next curriculum piece, which is the grades K through 5 elementary science materials curriculum. The administration provided a report to the school board on the curriculum materials proposed for grades K through 5 science materials curriculum at the April 1st meeting. The curriculum is now before the board for adoption. The administration recommends the adoption of the curriculum as submitted. May I get a motion?
Move to adopt the science materials curriculum for grades K-5 as submitted.
Second.
We will now open it up for public testimony on the K-5 elementary science materials curriculum. Is there anyone who wishes to testify? Seeing no one, public testimony is now closed. We will bring it back to the board. Does the board have any questions for administration or further discussion on this topic? Mr. Doran.
Just question to the, or clarification from the administration for the public's knowledge, that these science materials are the twig science materials. Is that so that the public knows what we're talking about?
Correct, yes.
Thank you.
Anything further from the board? Seeing none, Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote on the K-5 elementary science materials curriculum?
Colonel Cole,
Yes.
Miss Charlie,
Yes.
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Colonel Foster,
Yes.
Miss Julian,
Yes.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
Yes.
Miss Hardy,
Yes.
Maple,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Ms. Burnett.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you. At this time, the board is going to take a brief recess before we get into our memorandum on prioritizing reinvestment pending additional state funding. Board, please be back in your seats at 7:10. Okay, we are back from recess, and the board is going to continue on with our work, jumping back into our agenda. We are on memorandum for prioritizing reinvestment pending additional state funding. The board discussed this memorandum at the April 1st school board regular meeting, outlining specific directives to the administration for the FY26 FNSBSD budget. Potential reinvestments are dependent upon increases to the base student allocation within the state's foundation formula and additional student transportation funding. This memorandum clarifies and affirms the board's commitment to utilizing any additional revenue above a 680 BSA increase to reduce the pupil-teacher ratio across the district. May I get a motion?
Move to approve memorandum prioritizing reinvestment pending additional state funding.
Second?
We will now open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone who wishes to testify on this memorandum? Seeing none, public testimony is now closed. We will bring it back to the board for discussion and questions. Mrs. Hardy, over the last 2 weeks, the board had some updates, and I know you went in with the document. If you wouldn't mind kind of updating the board on where we are and what those updates look like.
Sure, there weren't too many. Mr. Doran did submit some comments, so I went through and incorporated those. One was just sentence structure, making it clear, but it says the exact same idea, and then adding in the governor to the last two paragraphs that say, therefore, should the legislature and governor, and same thing, and should the legislature and governor, making it clear that it needs the entire state government to pass this in order for it to happen. And then if you go to attachment A, there are changes there as well. So Barnett teachers was changed to Barnett exploratory teachers to FTE. I think it just said Barnett to FTE before. And it was updated to $317,000 as what it would cost for that, coming from, it was one of our memos or something. This is where I found the specific number. I had it at 315 prior, and that was incorrect. High school counselors is the same amount, and that was added in through board comments. We all kind of agreed. There was an additional comment about response to instructions, our RTI that Mr. Doran put in there, but I didn't have time to find out what that meant, so I'm sure Mr. Doran will let us know. And then, yes, just some general wordsmithing.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. Are there any questions, comments from the board? Mr. Doran, would you like to speak to the RTI, the response to instruction that you had added, please?
Okay. Yes, that was cut quite a number of years ago, about 6 years probably in that time frame, and that was an effort where we had tutors and instructional leaders who worked in each of the elementary schools to help primarily with literacy, primarily with reading. Most of their efforts were there. And why I wanted to add that back in is because since then we've had the READS Act passed by the legislature and promoted, supported by the governor. And that, one of the things that we struggle with is meeting the intent of getting small group breakouts. And that's what response to instruction staff did. They supported that. And it impacted all the schools. So very important, especially to the non-Title I schools who have fewer staff to address that area. And in light also of where the assembly landed in the minimum contribution to our district just the other night, it reminded me that the beginnings of RTI were actually initiated by our borough. I was sitting in their assembly chambers, and it was literally a few minutes to midnight, and they said, we have room under the cap to provide something extra for education. Where would you use it? And they decided that it should go, they gave $1 million to address reading at the elementary level. It was the Elementary Reading Improvement Initiative, ERIE, that eventually developed into RTI. And so these were cut in, because of lack of funding from the state. And I think it's time for us to put them back into consideration. As we say, PTR is number one, but there are various ways that we can provide services to students, programs, and positions. So I think it's very timely as one of the things that has been cut over the years to consider bringing it back.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. I'm going to put myself in. So I was pretty quiet when we brought this forward at the April 1st meeting, dealing with what I was dealing with. And spending the last couple weeks looking over it and going through it, I think that this is actually moving further and further away from its intended purpose, the further we get into discussion of add backs. The purpose of this was to make sure the legislature was well aware that if they were to pass this $1,000 increase, if the governor is to sign it, if he does not sign that one, they find another way to do this and it's $1,000 again, that this money would go back to the classroom, because the concern is that it won't. The big thing that keeps coming out of Juneau is they don't want to give us increases because there's no way it's going to get to the classroom. And so Anchorage was the first one to do it, and this was a way to say, no, that's wrong. This extra will go to our classrooms. So I do like that we have the Barnett in high school in there. I would honestly just recommend that we pass this as is, to get it out there, and that any further discussion around add backs and things like that we could have outside of this document. Mrs. Hardy.
I'd like to echo those sentiments. I definitely appreciate the addition of RTI, and it didn't get added to the memo, but the historical reductions that Mr. Doran had requested, one of the ones in there that's similar, and just to say what that price tag might be pretty close to, was in the fiscal year 24 budget, we cut 16 math and literacy teaching assistants, which are essentially paraprofessionals helping with RTI type things. That was $715,000. So we wouldn't even be able to get anywhere close to that with what would be left. The other thing to flag is, Anchorage, $1,000 BSA increase is pretty substantial. They have a much larger student population for us, and given our deficit and years of deficit, it's not enough. So that's why it's not just $1,000 BSA increase. At that, just $1,000 is $5.6 million. And just to keep PTR status quo in our high schools, middle schools, and lower it to 24, so only one down, that is $6.1 million. So $1,000 increase will not even accomplish our PTR reductions. That is why it needs a $1,000 increase and the transportation increase, so that we don't have to subsidize our transportation.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. We've got Mrs. Julian, and then Miss Carol Hubbard, and then Mr. Burgess.
Thank you. I'd like to speak in support of the motion that's on the table and keeping what we have in front of us as is. And the reason behind that is that, to my understanding, and thank you through the chair to the administration, describing the impacts of what increasing PTR, or for those listening, class sizes in secondary are. We are feeling it acutely in Hutchinson High School. And the way that we are feeling that is that we are asking instructors to take on more roles beyond that CTE role, beyond that that curriculum that is really rooted in CTE. And for anybody who's listening tonight, who is interested in making sure that we have viable career and technical education opportunities that provide students with a robust learning experience to drive them into the trades, into careers that are right here in the interior. A way to do that is to advocate for increased education funding, which we've outlined in this memo, which says that we will prioritize lowering class sizes. And by doing that, an outcome of that would be to potentially address the situation that we have at hand right now, which I think that everyone is grappling with, which is a reduction in services potentially for career and technical education in our district. So to speak to exactly that, and thank you to Mrs. Hardy for breaking it out, bringing our class size targets down from 32, which is what we've passed in the budget and the recommended budget, back down to 30. The question to the administration is, would that address the situation at Hutch that we've received quite a few emails about?
It could. I don't want to commit 100% that it would, but it would certainly help. And for the board and the public, this isn't just a Hutchinson High School issue. They're just the one that have kind of brought it to the forefront right now, which I appreciate. This has been happening in our high schools over the last 3, 4, 5 years as PTR has increased and other programs have gone away. And it's not just CTE, it's our arts, it's certain AP classes, it's certain honor classes. It's just a loss of the different sectional options that we're able to offer at our high schools. And so anything that the board can do to bring down PTR at the secondary level does help with options that students would have available to them.
Thank you, Dr. Meinert. We will go to Miss Carol Hubbard, then Mr. Burgess, then Mr. Doran.
I'll just keep it very brief. I do want to support the document as is. PTR is very, very important. And so I want to stick to that. I just want to just keep it as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Carol Hubbard. Mr. Burgess.
Thank you. I want to speak in favor of this document as well. I do have a quick question, point of clarification on the RTI amendment. My assumption is that because that part is incomplete here, that what we're voting on does not, what's in front of us now will not include that
right
as the final. It's just
correct.
The high school counselors and the Barnett
Correct.
exploratory. Okay, thank you. I do want to say, no, I will note that at our last meeting when we discussed this, I did make some suggestions about explaining the charter school piece. And the reason that I didn't get into the document, other than just being pressed for time, to suggest changes there, is that after thinking about it, you know, I did come around to, you know, the simple direct message is better, is more clear. And as Mrs. Hardy was saying, adding too much to it has the potential of creating confusion rather than supporting an argument. So I think that we should still make those cases. We should still be highlighting that by being forced to increase PTR or class size, and we are laying off teachers. We are making education more challenging for the teachers that stay, and we are actually reducing choice. When choice is the key word that we want to see choice in education, by forcing budget cuts of this magnitude, we have significantly reduced choice in our district, and that includes the choice of elective options, as well as many other things, as Dr. Meinert just pointed out. So I think that is something that we need to take forward to the legislature as a community. And I appreciate too in Dr. Meinert's superintendent report the emphasis on telling those personal stories. and saying how your student and your family is affected by these cuts. So please take this to Juneau, take this message to Juneau. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mr. Doran.
Okay, as our conversation is going around, I gather that what we're really focused is on the PTR, and if we should get something in excess of 680, that money would go away. It would be eaten up by the PTR. And, you know, in terms of when we look at keeping our PTR as low as possible, perhaps even lower than we've seen in the last couple of years, that does potentially increase the number of teachers available at every school level. Which means then that there is some flexibility within those buildings, how they use those teachers and such. So in terms of looking at that, then I would say and the comment, well, we can still look at PTR. We don't want to add to that list because we can do that later. And in terms of for the purposes tonight, I would suggest that we actually drop the non-PTR section because there are others that we, in our budget discussions, I would advocate that we add. So if we want to keep it really focused, I'm going to move to amend what is before us by deleting the non-PTR add backs at this time. So that's my motion, and I'll address it if it gets a second.
Second. Mr. Doran, address it.
Okay. So if we're really looking at what the probable amount is, our focus is on PTR, let's do PTR, keep it simple there. I think that I really like the wording that ends the memorandum that will strategically allocate revenue toward further reductions to class sizes and or the restoration of programs directly benefiting students, and that if we're in that situation, then we really have that conversation around the various potential add backs and the recommendations from the superintendent administration at that point as to what ones can most easily be readily put in place. I would also argue that, and I like the fact that PTR is still in that statement even if it gets late, because talking with principals, if they can get smaller classes up to the first, even into the first week, we've made adjustments and we've shown they've done the adjustments, and so we can do that. Again, with that sense that people keep mentioning simplicity and the force of saying, this is our message, we want to lower PTR, which will benefit in all these areas of staff if we can do that for the individual schools. So I think keeping the focus on what is our most pertinent and potent argument.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. Mrs. Hardy?
Sorry, I was looking up part of what I was going to say too, but I can speak partly having made the document, and I'll pull up the actual numbers in a second. It was a separate spreadsheet. So if you look at the numbers, $6.1 million takes up the PTR, and total, when you've added in a $1,000 BSA and the reduction of the $1.5 million subsidy to transportation, you have $7.1 million. So we have around $1 million that would be usable. And if I pull it up, when Mr. DeGraw gave me those figures, that extra $1 million wasn't enough to reduce. It would be a fractional PTR, which is why it at first didn't have any when I brought it forward at first, and that was just extra money. But I feel like if the point of this is to say, here is exactly what we're going to spend that money for, I know if I were to vote tonight, I would be voting to restore the FT at Barnett, and I would say the counselors. Those were two cuts that I think were extremely hard, that will be felt across our district, and that would be, I wouldn't want to just do a fractional PTR. I think we would get a greater benefit for those groups of students by allocating that money. And then there is still some money left over, and that could be other add backs. There could be more impact aid money. There could be other things, but this is telling the legislature, here's what we're going to spend it on. And if you look at Anchorage's memo, it also says we are going to restore cuts that we made this year, and here's what those cuts are going to be. Saying preserving as much of what you currently have now. So it's not even really an add back, it's a, we just aren't going to make this cut this year. Nothing new, what we already have.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. Throwing myself in real quick, and then we'll go to Mrs. Julian. I full-heartedly support those comments. We're a little bit, like was stated before by Mrs. Hardy, when Anchorage did this, they look at it just a little bit differently, as they're a lot bigger than what we are. So they're able to take up things and then make those little amendments saying that anything we cut this year, anything left over will add back to us. We have a little bit bigger of a chunk when you look at it due to our size. And so that would make sense that we would keep the Barnett and the high school counselors in here to take up that bigger chunk to show that, hey, we're not going to be wasteful. This is still going to go to our classrooms and still going to go to our students. And so I go back to being, again, on the side of supporting this document as is and moving it forward. Mrs. Julian.
Thank you. I am not in favor of the amendment to remove non-PTR add backs. And the reason is we had robust conversation as a board around listing the Barnett exploratory teachers at 2.5 FTE at $317,000, and then also the high school counselors at 2.5 FTE at $317,000. I would like to speak specifically about the high school counselors, which was something that I advocated for during the budget process. Those high school counselors are not only addressing those caseloads are going to be, yes, they will be comparative to what we have in the middle school level. However, the high school counselors are doing a lot more in also not just responding to individual student needs, but also making sure that every single student in high school has a plan for post-secondary success. And that's an entirely additional thing on top of the caseloads that we have and the work that's being done at the middle school level. And that's why I would like to, if possible, reinstate 2.5 FTE for the high school counselors so that we can bring those caseloads down and that we can serve our students better. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Julian. Miss Maple.
I agree with the desire to have those things, be priority to add back. But I think that similar to the last time that we had this conversation, that they're two separate conversations, and I am supportive of Mr. Doran's amendment because I think that it creates a more concise, clear and concise document for this purpose, and prevents us from tying the administration's hands, because we have absolutely no idea what will actually end up coming through. And I don't think that Mr. Doran is known for brevity and conciseness, and I really appreciated it.
Kudos, Doran. Kudos, Doran. Is there any other comments from the board at this time? Mr. Burgess.
I appreciate the discussion. I am going to, I'm not going to support the amendment. I understand the arguments being made, but I actually think that having, even though we don't really explain it in detail in the memo. I do think that having non-PTR add backs actually strengthens the argument. It's not a super complicated, I know that might be contrary to what I said earlier about simplifying things, but these are two very simple items that are easy to understand, and it shows that we're thinking beyond just class sizes too, that we are considering these other things that are important to our community. So I don't think I think getting into charter school funding and other kind of complicated details is maybe too much. So that's why I was speaking earlier about why I didn't include those. But these are very simple things. I don't think they complicate this amendment too much or this memorandum too much. So I'm okay with them staying in, and I agree too that we did have some robust discussion, and these seem to be priorities for the board. I don't expect that to change.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Mrs. Hardy.
To add to that, if the intent is to have it be an advocacy tool, which I know Anchorage has been used that way, it gets mentioned often in the legislature, and having us have this is also an advocacy tool for our community. And I can say that all our high school, students and that now have a reason to advocate even more for counselors, and our Barnett families have a reason to advocate even more to restore the cuts to their program. And it shows that is what we're going to do. There is the line that says any additional funds will be applied, strategically, but this is, again, in a sense, saying this is exactly what we're going to do, now fund us.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. Is there anything new from board members at this time? Not seeing anything new, we will be voting on the amendment to the motion. If you agree to the amendment, which would be removing the non-PTR add backs, your vote is yes. If you don't agree, your vote is no. Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Colonel Foster,
No.
Colonel Cole,
No.
Miss Charlie,
No.
Mr. Shannon,
No.
Mrs. Hardy,
No.
Miss Maple,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
No.
Miss Julian,
No.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
No.
Mr. Doran,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett.
No.
Motion failed.
Thank you. That brings us back to our original motion. Is there anything new from the board at this time? Mr. Doran.
Okay, want to get a clarification. This was published with the response to instruction program returning in some format. I am confused based on comments. Yes, I suggested it. That's how I took that. Other suggestions were incorporated, so I assume that was incorporated. I'm not clear. To me, when I read it, it's on our list. So is that my correct reading?
So if I am not mistaken, it was put on there as because it was suggested by you, but the board, there was no support there. And so it was to find out if there was support and what the cost would be if there was support for that. Am I correct there, Mrs. Hardy?
Yes, it was that we hadn't discussed that in our prior meeting, and I didn't feel comfortable just deleting it because it was a comment, and I said I would incorporate the comments. Other ones you had talked about in the meeting about adding governor, and it seemed that there were no objections. And then you had mentioned there were grammatical or things that could be tidied up, and those were the only other changes that I made to the document, and it didn't seem like anyone had a problem with any of those.
Okay, then I'm going to move to amend with the increase of response to instruction, RTI, on the list.
Motion fails for lack of a second. Going back to our original motion on the floor, is there anything new from the board? Mr. Doran, is it new?
Yes.
Okay.
So in our budget discussions, there were several items that we had put in and made notations that our discussions said they should be included or considered at some point to some extent. One of those is curriculum materials, which we talked about and was noted that they do have a real impact in the classroom. We've actually had public comment as well as board comment on that and administrative comment. So I would move that we include curriculum materials on that, and I'm happy to leave the dollar amount, but I'm particularly thinking of the TWIG. Well, so let me make the motion, curriculum materials, and then I'll address it if it gets a second.
Second.
Mr. Doran, would you please address your motion?
Okay, so one of our major things in our discussions was that curriculum materials do have an impact in the classroom. We have, as an example, the newly adopted TWIG science materials that would replace outdated ones and ones that are no longer in publication. So that would be an example, but I don't want to limit it to TWIG. That the administration, we're behind on a lot of our materials, and I would say that they would need to make the best recommendation. And perhaps a question to the administration if we needed to put a dollar figure in there, thinking it's somewhere in the area of 300 to 500,000. So.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. I'm going to throw myself in and just state that the majority of the board had agreed that they thought that the document was good as is without adding anything back. And if we add curriculum materials, I feel we are headed into a dangerous zone of creating an add back list in the document, which is not something we should be doing. Mrs. Hardy.
Point of order.
Mr. Doran?
That this is before us. It has an add back list that we are able to make motions for it. If they don't receive a second, if they get turned down, that's up to the board. But this is a document that is before us. It is an add back list. We can make amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. Mrs. Hardy.
I'm going to speak against the amendments, not because it's not worthy, and our curriculum materials definitely need to be funded. We've cut them for 2 years straight, but because since this is an advocacy tool to go to the legislature, saying that we're going to directly deploy funds to our classrooms, I'm worried that they're going to see something like curriculum materials as spending money on things that are not directly benefiting students. You read comments in social media and whatnot complaining that our curriculum materials are just fine. Why do we keep buying new ones? It just sits in the box. All these, which I know, and I do not believe that that is the case, but I think it hurts our cause. I do think we need to update them. There will be money left over if this scenario happens, and then the board can have its own discussion then to say, how do we spend that additional, I think it's like 300,000 or 400,000, maybe slightly less.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. Mrs. Maple.
I was going to say the same thing.
Thank you, Ms. Maple. Ms. Carol Hubbard.
Basically going to say the same, except that I'm going to say that we have to consider the audience that it's going to. And the audience that it's going to does not want to see money spent outside of the classroom. They want to see, and although curriculum is in the classroom, so it kind of doesn't make sense, but I think if we stick to PTR, I think we have a higher probability or possibility of impacting their opinion, and this has a higher success rate going in just as it is without adding anything else.
Thank you, Ms. Carol Hubbard. Is there anything new from the board at this time? Dr. Meinert.
Thank you. Not trying to muddy the waters here because I agree with the intent of an add back list and where what might be best for advocacy efforts. Do we need to take a quick recess? No.
Do we need to take a quick recess?
Okay, sorry. There's some frantic. I want to put on the table that every day we don't have a BSA increase is every day that we can't hire a teacher to fill these positions that on paper might look very good, that we're trying to do our best to reduce the PTR. But if we're looking at May or June to hire teachers where this BSA increase might come, there may be no teachers to hire at that point in time. And so I think Mr. Doran's point in terms of looking at items that have fallen behind, that are hard, tangible items that the district could spend money on to catch up for years of not investing in those things is something wise to consider. Now, whether or not that goes into this tool, I'm not debating that, but I do think it's important as we talk about advocacy efforts that we need to stress to the legislators and to the governor that every day that goes on, there's fewer and fewer educators to hire. And so we can do everything we want on paper to try to lower PTR, but at the end of the day, we still have to recruit educators into those positions.
Thank you, Dr. Miner. Is there anything else from the board at this time? Seeing nothing, we will move to the vote. The motion on the floor is to add curriculum materials to the non-PTR add backs. If you agree, your vote is yes. If you disagree, your vote is no. Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Miss Charlie,
No.
Mr. Shannon,
No.
Colonel Foster,
No.
Colonel Cole,
No.
Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
Yes.
Mrs. Hardy,
No.
Miss Maple,
No.
Mr. Burgess,
No.
Miss Julian,
No.
Mrs. Burnett.
No.
Thank you. Motion failed.
Back to the original motion. Is there anything new from the board? Mr. Doran. Oh, Mrs. Hardy. Sorry, forgive me.
I move to call the question.
The question has been called. That is non-debatable. Yes, please. Thank you. Yep, so the question has been called. It is non-debatable, so we will move into a vote which needs a 2/3 majority, which means it needs to be a 5-member vote.
Second.
There we go. Now it is officially seconded. So it's been moved and seconded. Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote on calling the question? A yes vote will bring us to the motion.
Colonel Cole,
Yes.
Miss Charlie,
Yes.
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Colonel Foster,
Yes.
Miss Julian,
Yes.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
No.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Miss Maple,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
We are now to the original motion on the floor, and we will go to the vote. A yes vote will pass the memorandum. A no vote will not pass it. Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Colonel Foster,
Yes.
Colonel Cole,
Yes.
Charlie,
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Miss Julian,
Yes.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Doran,
No.
Mrs. Hardy,
Yes.
Miss Maple,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you, Board. Our memorandum for prioritizing reinvestment pending additional state funding has passed. And that will move us into our adoption of the revised 2025-2026 academic school calendar. The administration supports and recommends the adoption as the 2025-2026 calendar. Changes made to the calendar include Professional Development Day added to August before start of school, September 25th early out replaced with Professional Development Day, Professional Development Day removed from November 14th, Professional Development Day removed from April 23rd, and Tentative Makeup Day for inclement weather added to April 24th and May 22nd. I will now turn the meeting over to Mr. Beam and Miss Herbie to discuss our calendar.
Good evening, board members. Can you hear me okay? Let me see if I can
Yes.
get closer. Good evening, board members. Again, I'm Rebecca Herbie, Executive Director of Communications. I'm here with Mr. Shane Beam, who's Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. And I just want to go over real quick. We have a draft revised 2025-26 academic calendar for you. So that was included in the board packet. So what we discovered is we were missing a student contact day. So we needed a student contact day to be added. There was basically an error that managed to sneak through our process. I have since made an exhaustive checklist that I can go through, and Mr. Duval, who's our communications director, also goes through it. And then we also have taken the step of there's a platform that Deed has that you submit your calendar to, and it like checks basically you have all the days you need. And so we did not submit this calendar, but we did run it through their checklist. So this one has been through many checks and balances, and we've changed our process a little bit so we can make sure that doesn't happen again. But as part of this process, as we were looking at where we could add a student contact day, we looked at the professional development days, and basically ended up moving a professional development day from where it was in April, and moved it to before the start of school, and that essentially added back a student contact day. But we still have our 6 professional development days. You may remember, if you've been on this board for a little while, we used to have 3 professional development days before the start of school. We've tried it with 2. Now we're going to go back to 3. Mr. Beam will talk about that, but I'll just briefly go over sort of the changes. Essentially, when we were looking at this, talking with the instructional side of our house, they looked at the professional development and what could be benefited by moving a couple things around, since we needed to fix a couple things anyway. So the main changes are that there'll be a professional development day before the start of school, removed from April. And then there was an early out on September 25th. That's now going to be a professional development day 2 days in a row, essentially. And that was from a professional development day that was in November. So I just kind of highlighted where those changes were, and Mr. Beam will speak to the professional development side of that, since he's the expert in that and I'm not. The one other change you'll see on this calendar is that Dr. Meinert instructed me to add a few more tentative makeup days for inclement weather, as our weather has been fairly interesting. And he wanted some more days built into the calendar, so that if we end up needing them, they're built in there. We also did get some feedback from families that they wanted at least a day, or they wanted it more built into the academic calendar. So if we did have to use an inclement weather day, that we weren't pushing back the last day of school. So one inclement weather makeup day was added to April 24th. That is currently a no school day. So if we need an inclement weather day, that will become a student contact day. It will not change the last day of school. And then the other inclement weather day was added to May 22nd. That's our teacher work day, and basically just reflecting that. So if we need another inclement weather day, that teacher work day will shift down. That Friday will become the last day of school. And then the 26, 27, 28 is what we're already. So we have 5 inclement weather days if we need them, instead of only 3. And I'll hand it over to Mr. Beam to talk about the professional development side.
So thanks for that. So that moving, we'll start with April 23rd. That was kind of an awkward day for us in the first place. Having PD at that time of year is just a little bit awkward. It's right in the middle of testing window. It's towards the end of the year. The teachers are not really in a mindset to be learning a bunch of new things for the next year. Now, if I could catch them a month later, now they would be in that mindset. But this is just not really a good time for it. So we were happy that we had this chance to kind of move that day. So we would be moving April 23rd to back in August. That gives us our extra day. Having 3 days in August is helpful to us. Now, it's important to remember from the bigger side of things is that for PD days in our district, we have building days that the principals own, and they do whatever they want with those typically. And we have district days, and we deal with the district days, but principals deal with the building days. Even though there are 3 days there in August, really one of them is a building day, and that belongs to the principal, and they do what they're going to do. So, but it does give us an extra day that will allow us to hit some more PDs, some things that teachers need, and gives us 2 days to do that. The idea is the same of rather than having that other PD day in November, we move it up to September 25th. We can hit teachers 2 days in a row with the PD earlier in the year, so they have more options, or rather more time to implement their new skills, their new learning, and then that's just another way that we can help our kids and our students at the same time. So having the early PD days is something that that we would really benefit from.
Are there any questions from the board?
Questions from the board? Mrs. Julian and then Mr. Doran.
Yeah, I just, through the chair to the administration, is this something that when you put forth these changes, that our union represented employees also support, and also teachers in general support?
I think that's a good question. We haven't had a chance to seek significant guidance from the unions on these changes. I don't anticipate any large pushbacks because it's a reallocation of days within the calendar. I think when we were talking about the 2 versus the 3 days at the beginning of the year and planning out what that would actually look like, I think they will enjoy that much more, because what it was looking like is a day and a half of district professional development and only a half a day for school-based stuff, and that's really not a lot of time to go over school-based procedures, school-based interventions, all the things that it takes to be very specific at a school level. Not a lot of time to do that work, and so I think they'll be supportive of that. One change we had coming into this calendar that is still reflected on the calendar is that April 24th day. That was something important to the our unions to have. That is reflected in other school district calendars of having a day off between spring break and the end of the year. That time gets to be long, and so having a day off of school is there. Now, with the caveat, and I do want the board to weigh this, with the idea of potentially having that marked as an inclement weather day. One of the things I heard a lot this year is, couldn't Dr. Minor reallocate some of the already professional development days we have as inclement weather days? And we can't, because professional development days count as student contact days. The way that we could use the 24th is it's completely a day off of school, and so it's a non-school day for students. It doesn't count for those days in attendance, and it's a non-contract day for our employees. So we could plug that back in as an inclement weather day if we need it, but that would be a pretty substantial change over recent years, so it's something that I wanted the board to consider.
Thank you, Dr. Minor. We have Mr. Dorn and then Mrs. Hardy.
Thank you. To the administration, I do like having the 3 professional development days, and actually at the beginning of the school year, 5 days prep for teachers total with the work days, and one of those being one of the professional development being the for the building, and that was a process that we did have for many years. One of my questions, and I appreciate moving professional development earlier in the year. But two aspects. One is just, I believe, our current calendar, and last year is we had a lot of discussion and the administration was strong that we needed time for the teachers to go over the MAP results and other literacy measurements. And it was really important. So we had those spread out in order for them to do that, and we actually even worked it in so we had some early outs in order to do that. Could you address why the change in that?
Absolutely, and I think Mr. Beam would like to speak to that.
Yeah, so actually, I should have clarified that September 26th is that day-to-day. So that's still there. That's not different. And that's when we need it because that is right after the end of the fall benchmark window. So that's the perfect time for that day. We could also, on the day before, have PD there also. We also have a day-to-day on January 6th. That even though that says PD, that's a building day that they will use for data gathering. And then later on, you're right, we don't have, I thought we had our early out, but there we go. Early, so May 1st is the early out, and that's when they could use the time to dig into the data there. So we have 3 benchmark windows. We have 3 spots throughout the calendar that teachers have the time to go in and dig into that data.
Okay, follow up. Okay, and I appreciate that explanation, and also we've had some experience to see how do we best use the days. So, like the September 26th, January 6th, we're expecting that at least part of that would be available in their buildings for them to do it, as opposed to a district professional development
Correct.
those days, or
Yes,
pulling
sir.
those people out.
Thank you, Mr. Dorn. That will take us to Mrs. Hardy.
And actually, I have 2 questions through the chair to the administration. The first, given that we haven't really had the time to talk about moving that April day with our represented staff, because we have added all those other days on the end, would it be the administration's goal to, before they use that day, confer with the staff and see which ones they prefer being utilized first?
Yes, if the board would give me that latitude to do so.
Absolutely.
And then
Yep.
my other.
Go ahead, Mrs. Hardy.
Just question for clarification of the PD days that are on the calendar. How many or which ones of those also involve our ESSA PD for them?
Yes, so EXA would be included in the September dates, because we could set something up for them there. Looking at the data on January 6th, they would be involved there. Looking at the data on May 1st. I would also say, so ESSA is hard to do in August because most of them have not reported to school yet. So we would love to have that opportunity. We just don't have the opportunity because ESSA reports, I think, the day before school starts or something close to that.
Many of the positions start the day before students start.
But I would also point out, we haven't talked about it, but we actually had specific training for our classroom ESSA folks in this room for 2 days in the last month. And they actually had the same training that our teachers had as far as teaching reading and the routines that are used in our classroom. So our teachers got it a year ago, our principals got it a year ago, our ESSA folks got it this year. So we can, from time to time, pull ESSA for separate things, and that's what we did this year. So even though it might not be here as a separate day, we can still make that happen instructionally.
Thank you, Mr. Beam. And to the point of Mrs. Hardy's question, Dr. Miner, the board definitely gives you the discretion to move forward how you need to move forward with the dates, considering don't think we're probably going to need that day. Is there any other questions from the board at this time on the calendar? Okay, at this point, I would take a motion to approve the calendar.
Move to adopt the revised 2025-2026 academic school year calendar.
Second.
We will now open it up for public testimony. Is there anyone who wishes to testify on our academic calendar? Seeing none at this time, is there any more discussion from the board? Seeing no discussion from the board, Mrs. Richardson, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Shannon,
Yes.
Colonel Foster,
Yes.
Colonel Cole,
Yes.
Miss Charlie,
Yes.
Miss Maple,
Yes.
Mr. Burgess,
Yes.
Miss Julian,
Yes.
Miss Carol Hubbard,
Yes.
Mr. Dorn,
Yes.
Hardy,
Yes.
Mrs. Burnett.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carried.
Thank you. Now the board will take a brief 5-minute recess and then we will jump into our information and reports.
So if it was a large group, 5, so, you know, then you'd switch out.
Okay, we are back from recess and we will jump back into our agenda, moving on into information and reports. Onto our proposed curriculum report on puberty videos as supplemental material. Executive Director of Teaching and Learning, Chain Beam, along with Tara Devon, Secondary Curriculum Coordinator, will provide a presentation on the puberty videos as supplemental material. Turn it over to you guys.
Thank you very much. The first thing I want to point out is the word supplemental on this slide is in bold. I want everyone to realize that this is a supplemental tool. This is not a tool that we expect every teacher who teaches this to use. This is an option that they may use if they choose to. If you think back to the other supplemental sex ed materials, it has to go through a process, and this is the final step of that process. There are 2 videos. You all had the links to them. I'm assuming that folks watched them. These are updated versions of the videos that were created by Procter & Gamble, I think maybe back in the 90s, I'm guessing. And what we found earlier this year was that those older versions had been removed. Now, those older versions had already been adopted by this board in 2018 when the board adopted a bunch of things all at the same time. Those videos were gone, and they were replaced by these new videos. The content is the same, they just look more modern. So knowing that it's not exactly the same videos, we wanted to bring it to the board and go through the process to make sure we're not stepping in anything here. So it's by Procter & Gamble. They took them out. These videos are used across the nation by many, many districts. What I think is another thing that's important to know about this is it is a tool. Whoever's teaching this at each elementary school can choose to use it or not use it. They don't have to, but it helps for an awkward conversation. I think showing the videos, then having the conversation is a much easier thing than just having the full conversation with a lot of 5th graders who are super awkward about the whole conversation in the first place. So having these videos is another tool that helps our teachers and counselors and maybe principals also have those conversations that are needed conversations. This was a streamlined supplemental process. When we found out about it, what we realized, this was, I'm thinking maybe December or January when we realized it, is that the videos were no longer available. And if we didn't get these passed, many teachers and counselors who were depending on those videos who have used them in the past wouldn't have the tool that they really needed. So we normally, as that the process has a start back in August, we weren't able to do that. So this is a streamlined process of that. February and March, we got Dr. Minot and Mrs. LaPlante to look at the videos. They were fine with them. They moved them on in the process. March 6th, the Board Curriculum Committee discussed the videos. We gave them the links just like we gave them to you prior to. They came in. We had a really good, robust conversation about the videos and had a lot of pluses and minuses about the videos. There was some conversation in that with the Board Curriculum Committee about, well, do the boys have to watch the boy, like only the boy video, and the girls only watch the girl video, or is it important for kids to know about both genders and what they go through? And there was a big conversation about that. Very interesting conversation. In the end, we kind of pulled it back to, we're not telling the teachers how to use the tool. We're just saying, is the tool valid or not for our purposes? But it was really good conversation. Then between March 17 and 28, we had feedback, and we'll look at that in just a second. Then on March 27th, the Board Curriculum Committee voted to recommend the approval to you all. The comments from the community, we only had 9 comments. 8 of them were overall positive. They said things like they were correct for the age, they were easy to follow. A couple of things that, yes, people said we like the videos, but, and one of the yes buts was one of the videos does not have closed captioning and one does. So we had a conversation about that because that was in the committee. And this was interesting. One person pointed out that in the girls' video that they talk about the cycle of once a month, girls might have this thing and they become super emotional. But they didn't talk about that on the boys' video. And boys can have that same kind of cycle and be emotional and that kind of conversation. So it was a yes, we like the video, but there's this one little thing that we didn't like about it. Both of those things, the closed caption and the gender equity part, came from the board curriculum committee, like within that. So there was a conversation about both of those. There was one overall negative comment that came from the community, and basically that person says that none of this is appropriate in school at all. In your packets, we did leave both the memo from myself and the board curriculum committee, and we're ready to take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Beam. I'm going to throw myself in first, then we'll go to Mr. Burgess and then Miss Maple, because I'm seeing your hands right off the bat. First, I want to say thank you for bringing this forward. I did watch both videos, clicked on both the links, and the one thing I want to say is how I like how they both start, because they both start the same, playing a little hangman game, right? I thought that was really appealing to students, because this is something that truly is kind of one of those things. Like, what I really loved about the beginning of the videos was it was them kind of being cheeky, right? They're like, because puberty is kind of this like giggly, shy, embarrassing topic, and I like how the game of hangman kind of highlighted that they were doing. And then it goes into the videos, and I watched every single second. These videos are great. I wish we would have had these when I was a kid. I really, truly think that these videos did a really good job at addressing things that, again, are cheeky and shy, and especially when it comes to like menstrual cycles for girls. And even if boys were to watch the girl video, it is super educational for things like that. And it's really important, as a mother of two boys, it's really important for boys to understand, you know, those kind of things about girls, and vice versa, girls to know things about boys, and it really to be a topic that we should be making less of a stigma to talk about. It shouldn't be something we're shy to talk about. And that's even something as an adult that I have had to grow out of and grow through, because some things, even as adults, we can have a hard time with. So I just really wanted to say thank you for this. I support it. The videos are great. Whatever comment was made that they don't belong in our schools, period, these videos are not inappropriate. They're not. So I support them, and thank you. We will go to Mr. Burgess and then Miss Maple.
Thank you. I just wanted to elaborate a little bit about the committee discussion, because I told them I would. And really there was a lot of really interesting discussion around, you know, the committee, the majority of the committee really felt strongly that that the materials should, that the information, whether or not it's these materials, but the information should about boys and girls should be presented to boys and girls, everyone. And again, like it was a learning experience as a board member and as chair of the committee, because really the conversation did get a little out of scope, as Mr. Beam suggested. And we had to refocus on, okay, we've got these materials in front of us. This is what we're actually talking about, not on how to deliver the instruction. But I did think that it was an interesting conversation, and the committee felt strongly that they wanted that their discussion to be brought up here. So I said that I would, and here we go. I do think that there were some questions about, or some criticisms about the videos. As Mr. Beam highlighted, there was more discussion. There is more discussion in the video about girls in regards to emotion, being emotional as a result of puberty, and the committee all agreed, like, yeah, boys get emotional too. So there is that kind of thing, but ultimately, I think the majority of the committee said our teachers need something, and this is good. It's not perfect. It could be better, but they did not want the perfect to be the enemy of the good. So they said, we need this. We're going to recommend its approval, and in the meantime, can always keep looking for something even better.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Ms. Maple.
I'm just gonna say I rewatched the videos today, and there's nothing of surprising note, except for they suggest that you should wash your hair every day, and that is not true. Anyways, that's all.
Most girls know you don't wash your hair every day because you'll ruin it. Miss Julian.
Okay, I wash my hair every single day, and I have beautiful hair. So I'm just saying that. Thank you, Bobby. So yes, I support. I'm glad that we are. Thank you for linking the videos. I am really glad that we have these supplemental videos, and I'm going to lean into the word supplemental for the listening public. And I also want to reinstate that that we also do have an opt-out policy of where parents that don't want and families that don't want their students to participate in this, they can always opt out as well. So I'd like to state that as well, and I think that's important to state that for people that have concerns. However, I don't have any concerns about the videos themselves. It was wonderful to be able to watch the videos, and thank you for leading that. It helps with awkward conversations. I have children in my family who are going to be going through this process, and I'm definitely going to probably be the awkward mom in those conversations. So those videos might even help me in navigating my own family conversations with my own children. Because it is awkward, even just for kids. It was awkward for me even watching the videos. However, I don't have any reservations about them, except for thank you for touching on the gender equity. I also wanted to just make sure that all students are able to see themselves. And one of the things that I just wanted to point out, and I thank you for making it that we're not going to let perfect get in the way of done at this point. I wanted to make sure that if there are students who have a different sexual orientation than a female liking a male or a male liking a female, I heard a lot during the videos about really reinforcing the straight students that identify as that, and students that maybe don't have that same identity. I didn't hear that. However, there's no feedback from the curriculum committee about that, and I did feel like there was enough language in there that could capture others, but I just want to make sure that all students are represented. And but the videos themselves are a fantastic way to facilitate awkward conversations around puberty, and I think that's the most important thing. So I appreciated being able to watch the videos. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Julian. I'm actually going to cue in Dr. Minor really quick, just so you could maybe for the board and listening public, since Mrs. Julian brought it up for our opt-out policy, if maybe you could just highlight our policy and what that looks like for families.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad that Ms. Julian mentioned that because I do want to acknowledge that there may be parents or families or guardians that don't want their students to participate in the health education of our students. And with the puberty videos, it does fall under the sex education guidelines, where we need to provide at least 2 weeks notice for families, let them know what will be covered in those lessons, and families have the opportunity to opt their students out. And so we acknowledge that we have a strong parental rights policy here within the district. And if these lessons aren't appropriate for your families, or you feel like they're not appropriate, then you can opt your student out of those lessons.
Thank you, Dr. Miner. Much appreciated. That will move us over back to the board. We've got Mr. Doran and then Miss Carol Hubbard.
Thank you for the presentation tonight and the links. I'm supportive of these. Couple of clarifications, and if I might just hitchhike on Dr. Miner's comment, because as a principal, I found a number of parents really appreciated they could preview the videos. Easier now with links than when they had to come in to see them, and that has helped a number of parents who then carrying on those conversations with their children when they came home. Question, could you clarify the grade levels that these are most expected or suggested for?
Yep, this is for 5th grade.
Okay, that's good. Sounds great, and that is where I thought they were. Where I was particularly going with in terms of these is, and what I really liked, actually, I had a chance using the old ones, and so it was fun to see the new ones here, and I think there are probably only a couple of us who were in that position back. And I think it was really key as I looked at these, and why I do think they're so appropriate and beneficial, because I started looking at it, okay, if I'm one of the ones presenting, and I used to co-present with our counselor and in a couple of cases with the teacher, the things that it really stood out to me is I liked the mix of boys and girls. As I looked at those also, I found it interesting that in the middle of the boys, you then had a girl talking about acne and hair washing and stuff like this. And I'm glad you pointed out it doesn't need to be every day, because we have a lot of people who can't do that. They have dry, they're hauling water, and things like that. But I thought that was really interesting, and it did catch my eye. Oh, wait a minute. Why all of a sudden? But I liked the integration. I was then, when I looked at the girls one, I was looking for that reverse, for having a boy all of a sudden pop up in the middle and talk about it. It's not a big deal that it wasn't, but I liked the integration, because that's what life is about. I mean, it's the boys and girls together and learning together. The other thing that I did like in terms of with both of them, that including behind the scenes shots of the kids as they were, being filmed, etc., then, their antics and stuff. And it was a mix again of boys and girls. So it kind of bookend both sides of that, which I think is real healthy for kids. So I like the updates. And I think I'm mindful in our discussions and with this is that it's only a small part of our growth and development piece. And a lot of the conversations that may be prompted by it or is addressed in other areas. And that as counselors, teachers, principals, in presenting these, really get a lot of credit for handling the questions, that the Q&As that come. And my experience has been really a lot of saying also, go home, talk to your parents. I've watched that where they've promoted that conversation with family and these videos really strengthen that. And an adult in your family that you can talk to, older sibling whom you can talk to, but to have those family conversations is part and parcel of not only these videos, but our growth and development curriculum. So thank you for bringing them forward, and I certainly look forward to approving them in a couple weeks.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. Ms. Carol Hubbard.
Well, I don't want to go after Tim anymore.
I know, right?
Mr. Doran, you took it all. There's nothing left to say. Ditto everything he just said. I actually, I meant to email you and tell you, because I watched these a long time ago. Like when you first sent them out, I watched them immediately and I was laughing. They're so well done. I thought they were so engaging. All right, I'm not going to repeat everything Mr. Doran just said, but you know, I like the integration of the boys and the girls. I loved the after shots. I thought that was so funny. And they're all just dancing and they're having a good time. And even that alone just is such a wonderful message, because kids aren't getting that message to be kids, and those kids were being kids. And we need our kids to be kids, because they all want to be adults. They all want to be 25 and doing everything adults do. And I loved it that they were kids. So thank you for those videos. I think that's a great addition, and I totally support them 100%.
Thank you, Ms. Carol Hubbard. Anything further from the board at this time? Seeing nothing. Thank you, Mr. Beam and Ms. Devon.
You.
That will bring us into our board and superintendent comments. We will begin down here with Miss Carol Hubbard. Do you have anything tonight?
No, I just want to say that I just appreciate our decorum has changed a bit, and our conversation has changed a little bit, and I'm so appreciative of that. I feel like we are following Robert's rules even a little bit closer, and everybody's just, I'm just really grateful to the board. Thank you, everybody. And I'm looking forward to, got to sign up for some of these graduations, and I think I signed up for 6 of them or something. So, but I think I was in 2 places at once at one point, so I had to switch it. But anyway, thank you.
Mrs. Julian.
Thank you. I just want to talk a little bit tonight about some changes, because many of our students, educators, and families have significant changes on their horizons that have been caused by the closure of Two Rivers Elementary School, Midnight Sun Elementary School, Pearl Creek Elementary School, as well as the redistricting, which is significantly impacting many of our elementary schools and middle school students and educators and families. So, to the students, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And who said that? Winnie the Pooh. To the educators, I just really want to say that I see you, I hear you. It is okay to be sad and frustrated and mad, and I am so sorry that you are going through these changes. You have been through so much with COVID and 7 years of budget cuts and previous school closures and uncertainty around federal funding and the Department of Education. You are survivors. To all of our educators. You are survivors. And you have not come this far just to come this far. So I'm thankful that you are continuing on and looking forward, but I don't want to dismiss all of it, what we're asking you to do with these changes. And then to the families, I want to say that when little people are overwhelmed by big emotions, it's our job to share our calm, not join their chaos. And so what can you do? There are open houses, of which my family is one of the families that's going through this big change. So we went to the open house at the new school. We look forward to going again in May. There's an open house inviting families. My own children are very excited about the school field trip that they're going to take to their new school. I realize that not every family is going to be able to participate in those. So I just encourage you to reach out to whatever new schools that you may be attending. Talk to the administrators, talk to the teachers, and do what you can to find a silver lining and find a spark that gets you and your students excited. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Dooley. And Mr. Doran.
Thank you. I've got several things. One is to make sure we draw to our educators' attention that there are opportunities with the state to participate in the AK STAR data and content reviews this summer in July. And then that'll be virtual. There are stipends to participate in that. And then in August for the Alaska Science Assessment, both in data and content. That's going to be in person in Anchorage, but they will take care of travel and lodging, and also a stipend is involved in both of those. So I hope our educators will be able to participate in those, and I would encourage them to bring also their perspective, not only as an educator, but how their students read the content that's there. And I'm assuming that as administration that's gone out to all staff and stuff. So just reminder to staff, look for that, and I hope people will be able to participate in it. We've had several comments suggesting that we have pornography in our libraries, and I do want to address and reassure parents we do not. Pornography is actually a legal term and defined by the U.S. Supreme Court decades ago. It's very clear, and I will add my voice in assuring people we do not have pornography in our libraries. And it's really, really good that librarians do look and watch in vetting the materials that do go in a library, and they're optional, and parents have a great say in terms of what their students may be looking and reading out. But I do want to reassure the public on that. Another opportunity for input from the public, and if you had a chance to watch or listen to our work session last evening on the strategic plan, one of the wonderful things of that was the conversation, and even the conversation about individual words. What do they mean, or what do we hope for? And it's still in draft, and so I just encourage the public to tune into it, take a look at the draft, add your voice to it, because that is really the view that we want to try and develop as a community commitment to what we would like to see for our kids in terms of school over the next 5 years. And it's not next year, it's 5 years. Where do we want to build to and stuff? So I encourage you to engage in that. As we move forward, and hopefully we will see some good funding from the state, that I hope that we as board members will also consider what, depending upon how much money we have to play with, different things. And I would just put in Hutch as a consideration, as an equity with our magnet schools. They were also cut to teacher positions in terms of that, but supporting all our magnets. We had 2 days of retreat, Friday and Saturday for the board, and I just want to say what a great group, and to share that with the public. We we bring different perspectives, which is really important to representing our whole community. We have different touchstones, and one thing that I took away from the retreat, besides some real professional development skills and thoughts about policies and practices, etc., but really took away the deep commitment from every member on our board to really be doing the work for kids, keeping our focus centered on students, and trying to weigh out different things. And the value of having the various perspectives is that it benefits our students because they're different. And we have great diversity, but we want them all included. And so this is an opportunity that just to kind of brag on our board a little bit. So I thank everybody for taking those days away from family, away from your other job commitments or volunteer opportunities, all those different things, but taking that time. And I just wanted to end adding also my appreciation to the borough leadership and the assembly for setting the minimum local contribution to our district, the $60 million level, and doing, which is in the proposed budget and was in the mayor's proposal, but doing that early. Usually we've, say, well, it's the minimum, and we get that. This is just the minimum, and we'll, even if they're going to do the full recommended amount in the proposed budget, but that leaves us in a heightened state of uncertainty. And so having the knowledge that what we included in our recommended budget to the borough, that we know we can count on that 60 million there. Would love a little bit of a boost, but that certainty, I think our assembly and the borough really needs our thanks and kudos for stepping forward early. It takes one more thing off our plate as we wait to find out what comes from the state. But it really sends a message of positivity to our students, our families, and our community that we do want to invest in public education.
Thank you, Mr. Doran. Mrs. Hardy.
First, I would also like to add my thanks to the Borough Assembly and all the members that voted to pass that $60 million funding resolution. I had the pleasure of being on the dais that night and hearing their debate and discussion, and I'm so grateful that they took the opportunity to really give us a solid footing. While we might not be able to right now know what we're going to get from the state, we do have a minimum floor for our borough, and I think that gives us all a lot of peace of mind. Next, we have the Fairbanks North Star Borough School District Speech Contest coming up this weekend. Friday, April 18th is the date that you need to submit names if you are an educator, or I happen to know if you're at a school that isn't participating and you might be a parent, if they're not running their own, you can submit a name that way too. You would need to reach out to Becky Zyvrel, who is the principal over at Denali Elementary. I know that they are really interested in getting it going again. It kind of fell to the wayside during COVID. So it is open to students 3rd grade through, I think I've forgotten that one. I think it goes through middle school, through 8th grade. And from the email that I received from Ms. Zyvrel, she says that remember, if you have students who might be great extemporaneous speakers, so nothing to prepare because it's the night before the contest that we tell them the article they get to read, you can always submit that name on Friday. Lots of opportunities. Reach out. I have a good friend who's judging it, and they are excited to listen to some great speeches this weekend. And then so you know when, if you want to watch it as well, April 26th, it will be at Denali Elementary School at 9 a.m. check-in, and they start at 9:20. And then the Kids Voting North Alaska Sticker Contest is open right now. You can go to kidsvotingnorthalaska.org, and right on that main page, there is a link to the downloadable PDF to enter. The deadline to enter is Monday, April 21st. And by 4 p.m. And if you have hard copies, you can send those to Teaching and Learning. There is an email address on that website if you are sending in a digital copy. The first place winners in each grade, kindergarten through 12th, will win a $100 gift certificate. Or I think it's $100 cash, actually. And that's it for tonight.
Thank you, Mrs. Hardy. Mr. Burgess.
Thanks. I don't have much tonight, but I do want to add my voice to thanking the Borough Assembly and the mayor for that minimum funding resolution for all the reasons that were already expressed. I just want to just really emphasize that I agree with Mr. Doran that I would look to them for another additional boost beyond that, if at all possible, because we are in a tough situation, as everyone should be aware by this point, and we could use a little bit of a buffer there, just in case things don't go well at the state level, or just because our fund balance really isn't where we want it anyway. But just, yeah, so that's pretty much it for me tonight. And thank you to the board for a robust retreat this past weekend as well.
Thank you, Mr. Burgess. Ms. Maple?
I don't have any comments tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Maple. I don't normally speak after a meeting. I try to say everything I need to say in the president's report, but I felt the need to address some of the comments that I have been hearing recently, and I wanted to keep this to my own personal comments instead of a president's report, including a comment that actually came to me tonight during our recess. These comments relate to how board members should or shouldn't vote, and what we should or shouldn't be supporting. I want to be clear. I and others on this board were not elected to only support certain things. I was not elected to only support conservative matters. This board is not a partisan body. We are here to serve all students and to ensure a strong, equitable education for every child in our community. My commitment has always been, this board's commitment has always been, and will continue to be pro-education. That means advocating for what's best for students, including pushing for increased funding and a much-needed increase to our base student allocation. That's the work that I was elected to do, and that's the work that I will keep showing up for, as well as the rest of this board. And with that, I've not said it publicly, but I will tonight. I will be running for re-election to the school board and would like to be here for 3 more years. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
We are now adjourned.
Recording stopped.